Hello, relatives. It's Dr. H. Welcome to this week's Schlagbyte for the week April 14th, 2007. So this weekend I had another bar mitzvah. We'll be a little longer in telling this story. It was the day he is initiated, called to the Torah, to be initiated into Jewish tribal manhood. And the day before he was called to Torah, I sponsored for him a Native American sweat lodge ceremony, and my Pima, Akimel Autumn brother, Dallas DeLoe, conducted this warrior initiation sweat. There were 17 of us, and we sat cheek to cheek in this tightly packed, canvas-covered, willow-framed hut. It's an intense purification ritual, and it's a confrontation with oneself. That take-your-breath-away heat just gets rid of all those inconsequential preoccupations. They seem to melt away, and you focus on the significant issues, like where you're going to get your next breath. And so, scrunched tightly together, we talked to each other about what we thought was important about being a man. Each of us shared a story, an experience, a teaching that profoundly impacted our lives. And I told him a story about a young Maasai warrior, and I have shared this story before when I came back from Africa a couple years ago. I had met this young man in Kenya. He was the firstborn son of a village chief and would ultimately inherit his father's position and his cattle. But he was also the first in his family to go beyond the 3 years of compulsory education in Kenya and continued on, learned English, spoke it fluently, and then got a job working as a cultural liaison aide in a tent camp, and I met him during our safari. Actually, Elaine, my wife, met him first. I was out on a night safari, and she was sitting around the campfire where Joseph held forth, and afterwards they talked. And in the hours that they had spoken together, he told her that he was uncertain about his future. He'd spent a lot of time here in this tent camp. He didn't want his father to choose a wife for him. He did not want to live in a dung hut that would periodically wash away during the rainy season. If he had a daughter, he didn't want to circumcise her. And by and large, the nature of the conflict was that it was estranging him from his father and family. And Elaine felt his suffering and mentioned to him that I was a doctor who had worked with indigenous people in the United States, and I'd had some experience with these conflicts. And if he wanted to speak with me, that maybe tomorrow night, and she would mention it to him. And the following day was New Year's Eve, and after dinner, Joseph and I had a deep, soulful conversation about how people survive in rapidly changing times. And I told him what my experience had been with those people. I called them bridge people, the first people who cross over into a world of new experience, which brings not only enlightenment and discovery and liberation, but also potential conflict, because you get to see what was your old world from a completely new perspective. Joseph didn't want to abandon his Maasai traditions, but he also didn't want to live like his father. And at the end of our conversation, he asked me what I thought his future would be. I was a medicine man. I could foretell those kinds of things. And I said, in summary, that I thought it was possible for him to be a good Maasai and also to enjoy hot showers. And we said goodbye. We danced into the morning hours, and the following day before we departed, Joseph came to our tent. But I didn't recognize him because he was in shorts and had a buzz haircut and not the braided, beautifully shorn traditional hairdo. And he came and he said it was Joseph and that he wanted to thank me for helping him welcome in this new year, in this new way. He was going to go home today and he was going to greet his father in this dress. And then he reached into his back pocket and took out a war club that he himself had carved and handed it to me and said that this was not the only thing that made him a real Maasai warrior, and that he believed that he could tell his story in any costume that he chose. So in the sweat lodge ceremony, I told my grandson this story, and then I gave him the Warrior Club and said that it was a reminder to listen and honor the teachings of your elders, but that a warrior will always look at the old landscape with new eyes. You don't have to see it like somebody else knew it. My father no longer came into the sweat lodge as a sign of anything other than he thought I had eaten too many strange herbs in the Arizona desert. And you will do it differently than I. Do it. Do it in truth. So take a look at the pictures and enjoy them. For those of you who are interested in healing and expanding your power to heal, the next Last Mask of the Authentic Healer will be held in Phoenix in the first week in June. Check it out on the website. I say, Joy, have a great week. Remember your connections. I say this for all my relations.